right, and welcome to another edition of the Lynn Lowdown. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Al Wilson is from Beyond Walls. Lynn is here with us. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem. Thank you for joining me. And we're gonna talk. We got a lot to talk about, but first, you guys, this year you couldn't have a festival, but you guys did get some stuff accomplished. You guys did get some new murals up. Just talk to me about that with this whole pandemic and not being able to have the big festival, but we're still able to bring in some artists to come in and do what they do.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a very challenging year, a very difficult year, a tragic year for some. But we started the year not really, knowing that we were going to be in a pandemic, obviously. So in February, we had a really great gala event at Centerboard. We had a huge list of panelists there. Kiami, Judge Hogan, Magnolia Contreras, several others, superintendent of schools in attendance, the mayor there, really for a gala for the youth so that they could see themselves represented on a stage, parties that had either grown up in Lynn or were living in Lynn that are excelling at their field and leaders in their thought space, to speak on a panel, and then matching them up with mentors in the room, and then a big dance party and a lot of fun for the kids. But we didn't realize at that time that for many of the attendees, including the youth that were in attendance, this was the event for their year. They weren't going to have another large gathering indoors. By March, it was clear we were now in a very different world. And so for Beyond Walls is a creative placemaking organization with the mission of activating space to strengthen communities. There needed to be a real pivot to understand what the community was now sharing as a need. And that had us come up with then a number of different types of projects.
Mm-hmm. And how many murals were you guys able to get done with this latest one? How many? I know because you had the location on Union Street. There was one on the Linway. But those are the two I can remember.
Yeah, I mean, there's some large ones that got up. It's interesting how it played out. So in March, the last thing on our, though we knew there were going to be a number of stories that, in times of need, there should be art that reflects street art reflects what's going on, right? What's going on the street, what people feel. And because there's no barrier of entry, there's no cost to take it in, there's no rules of engagement of how to act, and that the artists that we bring in are reflective. If they're not from Lynn, they reflect the cultures of Lynn. It's important for them to know what's going on in the city. And so that I think the planning for that and the pivot away from a festival, which would bring huge groups of people together, which obviously couldn't happen in a pandemic, that probably started the thinking around that pivot happened in March and April. But the real focus for us initially was as soon as we knew the economy was taking a huge hit, and as soon as we knew really that mask use was one of the critical ways to mitigate the spread of the virus, we came up with a hashtag Lynn Loves campaign, which had us hire 3 local seamstresses and make masks featuring some of the artwork that had already been put up in the streets in Lynn. And so for us, it was critical for us to get those out to youth that we
Mhm.
thought, hey, if they have a really comfortable mask and a mask that they like wearing, they'll wear it. And then also let's get it to essential workers. So that and that's hire local seamstresses. So we hired 3 local seamstresses. We ultimately ended up giving away 1,500 masks
Mhm.
in the community. So that was our first sort of foray into a pivot that's really a little bit of mission creep for us, but was a smart move. And then the city was, you know, the city was hit by the pandemic, uh, really hard out of the gate. But there was some really strong leaders in the city. One of which is Tom Hines on the fire department in the city,
Mhm.
who stepped up in a big way, amongst many others, and many parties at City Hall played critical roles. But we ended up, uh, Beyond Walls ended up being put on something called the Vulnerable Population Task Force,
Mhm.
which was really set up to the most vulnerable in society were going to be those parties that were, semi-homeless, homeless, potentially have some IV drug use, parties with some behavioral challenges that are sometimes on the street, and they were going to be getting the virus and then spreading the virus to their caregivers.
Mhm.
And the task force was led by a great guy in Lynn, and then made up of really 4 major key players in the city. Lynn Community Health Center, which obviously play. I mean, you know this. You're just down the street from them, but
Mhm.
they play. They're the health provider for Greater Lynn.
Mhm.
So they played a big role. The nurses played a big role. Their senior staff, the My Brother's Table, which is a large soup kitchen on the North Shore,
Mhm.
was the other sort of key leg of that stool, because of the YMCA and the role that they play, and that they were housing parties based on COVID, rules. People were
Yeah.
spread out. They were the key players, and what they were saying was, look, we're seeing people in line at My Brother's Table, or coming in for health services, that because all the shops are closed, because there's no public restrooms, they're not able to wash their hands, and we're treating people that haven't washed their hands in weeks, and they're spreading the virus amongst their population. They're spreading the virus to the caregivers, and so we need remote hand washing stations. And so that ended up being tasked to Beyond Walls, because we worked with United Rentals to such an extent we thought we could rent them for the city, based on our past partnerships with them, and we found out that they were 12 weeks out from being available. So we started making them in our office on Mount Vernon Street.
Mhm.
um, it was all done, again with sort of great relationship with the city of Lynn and City Hall, and ultimately that was part of the success, that we were able to get hand washing stations to Lynn Community Health Center, My Brother's Table, outside the shelter and
Yeah.
outside the YMCA, and
Yeah.
they served a purpose,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And also with that, you guys also had some working on some initiative going into the holiday season. You guys had some stuff happening for the holiday season. Can you just talk to me a little about the some of the initiatives that you guys have going on into the holiday season?
Yeah, well, we did, coming out of the initial response for COVID COVID-19, was then that the restaurants were going to be reopening, and they needed expanded outdoor space, right? So it was perhaps not safe to be indoors, but it was 20 times, reports were 20 times less likely to spread the virus outdoors. So um, that had us focus on what we called Fold, which was our outdoor dining setup that we brought to several restaurants in Lynn, including Nightshade Noodle Bar, that had opened just nine months before COVID hit, and their owner and chef Rachel was really saying, look, I need to expand outdoors. And so that allowed us to help her expand into what was traditionally parking spaces outside the restaurant and serve a great number of people. And that ran right in and through the holidays. So she ended up being able to, obviously stay solvent. And it's big because it's jobs for parties that are in Lynn that are working at a restaurant and keeping that restaurant open is an important part of the fabric of the community. And then just because we have we did the Underpass lighting project, and the city, this is their second annual lighting ceremony that they do down by the tree. And they have the tree. They have they do this for a kickoff of both Hanukkah and then the rest of the holiday season and Christmas. So we changed the color of the lights on all three bridges, Central Square, Washington Street, and Market Street, sort of match up to a holiday themed colors. And then also it kind of brings us into the art that we installed. So, and I know you were asking about that early, but that was sort of later in the year when we got finally to do some art.
Yeah, definitely. And as we're closing out the year, there's always looking forward, moving forward into the new year, always looking at new initiatives. So for the new year, I know we're still in the pandemic. So what's state of beyond the walls for the new year as far as initiatives and any outdoor plannings, because we're still in this pandemic. Don't know how long it's gonna be. So I'm sure this is kind of got to change your plans for 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. I mean, instead of doing the festival, we reached out to Lynn Youth to inform us about what they're going through and the stories. We had hundreds of sort of either stories or photos, or they could submit art, or they could submit written stories, but also they could do audio stories. We partnered with a great nonprofit called Harbor Voices out of Gloucester to help us on this, and a number of other groups really involved with Girls Inc. and Boys and Girls Club of Lynn, Lynn YMCA, Youth and Family Services of Lynn. So some really awesome youth organizations, but that dictated the art that came to the street this October and November. So you saw original artworks from some really talented youth in Lynn. Photos of Lynn Youth went up on the Lynn Community Health Center wall. We did a huge piece down at the YMCA. You've got your piece by Avoca One out across the street from Lynn Community TV. So that's all the physical artwork. What's happening hopefully in the spring is we're going to share these audio stories through our partner Harbor Voices in a cool way. But I really think that for us, it's it's continuing to get the right sort of messaging out of that we're in this together, and kindness isn't canceled, and wearing a mask and washing hands are important. And we put up 140 signs throughout downtown Lynn through a partnership with a group called Amplifier. I don't know if you've seen them, but it's Shepherd Ferry's art studio. So they've got these, large scale posters that we've put up. Some are universal, some are in Spanish, some are in English, but they're throughout the downtown. We'll continue to do stuff that really the city shares is a need. If we can take a creative lens to solving that, then we'll do so. And then, we're just going to be working with the parties that we think are the most impacted during this time, which is Lynn Youth. And so I don't quite know today what that's gonna entail, but I promise you, given the amazing families and the amazing youth and the amazing organizations that are in Lynn, it's going to be pretty special. And if there's a way that we can work with the city on, you know, tactical urbanism and urban design stuff that can help alleviate challenges, we're really looking forward to that. The city has, you know, a new and we think a really great guy in Aaron Clausen. He's the director of the planning department in Lynn now. So we've got a city planner, we've got a city planning department. We're excited to work with him and other groups in the city. And it's not just, you know, obviously this has been a really hard year for a lot of folks, but what we're seeing is a number of organizations in Lynn partnering up and doing really cool stuff. So, you know, I think the Lynn Museum is doing some really great stuff. Raw Artworks is doing great stuff. Lynn Arts is doing excellent things. You know, the Cultural Council is really working hard. So I'm excited for that, the partnerships that have come together, you know. Lynn Community TV, I mean, man, you guys are playing such a critical service, getting news out there on what's happening and updating residents. So hopefully we're going into a holiday season where we can, you know, where we can look back on some of the positive things, feel good that there's some vaccines, you know, that are now being distributed to parties in Lynn and soon far more so. And, you know, we're still going to be dealing with this thing for a bit here, but there's brighter days coming, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And before we get out of here, I noticed everything in your background. Can you just tell us a little bit about some of the stuff in the background, some of the photos you got back there?
Oh man. Yeah. All right. We'll see if I'm going to put you on the test. Ready? Who do you think this is?
See, their shirt gave it away. That's the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh man,
the shirt.
He's good. What about, where do you think it is?
That's the Capitol Grill over there across from the museum.
That's right, Capitol Diner. Yeah. So, so when I first got out of college, I worked for Phoenix Media Group, and we had an FNX radio station broadcast out of Lynn, right, basically above where Lynn Arts is right now, that same building. And so one of the DJs there, Julie Kramer, used to have all these different rock bands come in to Lynn to go on air, and then she'd take them out afterward. So Julie also is a photographer, so she took these great photos. And this is Anthony Kiedis having a coffee there with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. That's Flea.
That is really cool.
That's probably from like 92, maybe.
Okay.
93. And then this is a old machine shop where, I don't know if you can see these firefighters, but you know, they're leading a carriage and these kids are running along beside it.
Yeah.
It's outside a machine shop. The cool thing about the firefighters is they all have that, every single one of them has that sort of firefighter mustache of the era, you know? It's like everyone has the same mustache.
The old school stash. So that's pretty good stuff you got there.
Yeah, I really, really appreciate the time to come on. Again, really think Lynn Community TV is doing a fantastic job informing everyone. And we're wishing everybody happy holidays and look forward to 2021, right?
Definitely.
I think we all are.
Definitely. Now, if anybody wants to help out with you guys, donate, please let them know where they could go, plug the social media, the website, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so they can go to beyond-walls.org. So beyond-walls.org. They can check out what we've done this year. They can make a donation there on the site. We'd also love for parties to follow us on social media, which is Beyond Walls Lynn. So they can follow along on Facebook and Instagram at Beyond Walls Lynn.
All right, and that is Al Wilson. Once again, thank you for coming on. Always a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure you'll be back on pretty soon again in the new year. So have a safe and happy holidays, and thank you once again for coming on.
You too. Thanks for having me.
No
Bye-bye.
problem. You guys have been watching the Lynn Lowdown. I'm your host, Mukala Kabongo. Have a great day.